and good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing
Morning.
today?
Hello.
Hello, Marianne. Hello, Justin. Hello, Megan. Good to see you.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me today. I really enjoyed watching you guys last week. It was a really fun stream. It was great. Thank you, Matt, for helping out and jumping in on that one. We have a great stream today. It's about identity management and kind of bring to some everyone's attention a little bit of education on the National Cybersecurity Alliance Identity Management Day. I think it's a great piece of it's great educational, a lot of content on this, and really identity management is a great way to combat um, a whole host of different cybersecurity threats, and I think we'll get into that a little later. We have a good screen of that, and before we get there, I just want to say thanks for our regular viewers. You know, we do this every week. We're really happy to keep doing this. We're Valiant. We're a New York City-based MSP. We reach out almost everywhere in all 50 states. And if you want to check out our YouTube channel, we're on the Valiant Way /live. Give some thumbs up, give some likes, some views. There's some really good content on there. I think that's from some of the instructional all the way to educational, like new stuff that you might not heard of. And beyond that, we're just really excited to talk about identity management. Before we do that, let's talk about Tech Bytes.
Okay, great. So the one thing I wanted to talk about today is being able to scan documents with your mobile device, primarily your mobile phone. There's a lot of different softwares and applications that will do that, but the ones I really like are the ones that are already tied into your cloud management. So, OneDrive, Google Drive, or Dropbox are really good ones. But I know you guys mentioned when we were discussing this a couple that you've used. I don't know if you guys want to chime in of
Sure.
that with what you use.
Yeah, I use a product called CamScan. Just basically, it's a third-party standalone app. It scans it. There's a paid-for version. There's a free version. It's pretty cool. What I liked about it was it can concatenate pages into like one document pretty easily.
Mhm.
Has an easy feature. Has a good sharpen. So, but once again, not necessarily necessary. They kind of all do the same thing, but I found that was
Mhm.
helpful.
Yeah, and I used actually yesterday I used the Google Photo Scanner, which was a little different than the one in Google Drive. It's
Mhm.
geared towards doing photos, like to get the removes the glare off of like a picture frame and things like that. But it worked pretty well for a document I was doing, and it grabbed it for what I needed it for.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, they all, for the most part, they work the same. So that's why I'm gonna just talk about it as sort of general scanning. But yeah, essentially, all you need to do is you get the application. You're going to use your phone. It works best on one-page documents. If you need to scan a bunch of stuff, it's going to be super arduous to do it through the. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you just need to scan a one or a two-page document, it's actually really easy. So essentially, the steps are the same for most of them. It is you open the application, there's like a plus button to start your scan. If it is one of the applications like OneDrive, you do have to find the section. When you press plus, it'll give you options to like upload or scan a document, or you just pick the scan document. If you haven't already, you need to allow access to your camera because that's primarily what it's going to use. And then you point it at your document. Works best if you use a black background. I have a really big black mouse pad that I use for this sort of thing. And it'll more easily detect what the edges are. But even if you don't, it'll let you adjust the edges and crop after it takes sort of the photo. Um, so yeah, so you'll click the scan button, it'll do that. And the best you can do to keep your arm still, I've had to retake a couple because I was just like shaking. I'm like, stop, let me just do it a little bit still.
Right.
But actually, a lot of them do correct for that, and they do the
Right.
sharpen, which is really cool. You can also adjust it. So if it isn't doing a proper white balance, you can tend to adjust those things. The best ones that I like do a really good white balance. So they actually make it look like a document instead of a photo. But there's a lot of settings depending on which one you use. And then, lastly, you'll be able to save it usually as a PDF to your cloud storage. So if you are using one of the third-party ones, you can either tie them in together or you save it to your phone and then upload it. If you're using OneDrives or Google Docs, it'll just ask you which folder you want to save to. Um, and that's really it. It's super simple. Some of them look better than others. I do find, like, when I was trying to scan a document yesterday just to figure this out, I did The OneDrive one sort of defaulted to looking more like a picture than a document, which, for some things that's good, because again, sometimes you're going to be scanning a document that has images that you want, that's going to be in color, and then you can adjust it later. The Google Drive one did a little bit better with the auto adjustment, making sure that it was framed correctly. But the Dropbox one I found was probably my favorite because it made it really document-like. It had a really good sharpen, had a really good white balance to make the background look like it was just a piece of paper.
Right.
So it kind of looked the most crisp. So that was my experience, but it is really easy. It's basically put your document down, scan it using the application, and then upload it.
Right.
And you can make some adjustments along the way, but I think it's really important for part of our like mobile workforce, and
Right.
when you're working from home, sometimes you just need to scan a physical document. Not everything can be digital, but everything can be made digital.
That's right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And yeah, exactly. I mean, not everyone has access to a scanner or a multifunction
Oh,
printer.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, we
My
see that.
scanner's like 20 years old, so it's not.
Yeah, it's a
Most
whole
people
thing.
don't.
My scanner is at Staples.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. All right, awesome, Marion. That's great. That's a great tech bite. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
But
thanks.
before we get into our identity management, I have a very special announcement today. Because last week we had a special guest, and but it was a lie. It wasn't Clippy. It was a fraud. It was
Yeah.
we found out his name is Slippy. He's a
Mm.
bad he's a basically an imposter. Totally completely assumed the identity of Clippy, and
Wow.
basically he was he I think what happened to the authorities are saying is that the real Clippy fell prey to a phishing or business email compromise. We're kind of getting
Yeah.
to we're getting down into what happened, but we know for a fact that Clippy does not have MFA enabled on his Outlook, on his Office 365 account. Some
That's
classic
pretty
mistakes
great.
here, with some best
Mhm.
practices. But now we know what happened to him. He's not, we got to get deeper into what with Clippy or to protect Clippy and find out what this Slippy situation. Kind of get down to it. So,
Save
you know,
Clippy.
save Clippy. We gotta get him back in proper form, and
Yeah. Lock
hopefully,
it
yeah,
down.
it's pretty scary. That can happen to all of us, even a paperclip. So, with that, we're gonna try to next in a couple weeks we have a great live stream with some of our friends from Scout. We're gonna see if they can help us shed some light on this Clippy Slippy situation. Kind of walk it backwards and do the anatomy of an attack. Now, with that, let's get to some identity management. So, uh, identity. What Justin, help us out. What's identity management? Give us like the 10,000 foot view.
Yeah, identity management is how you, as a business or an organization, or even as an individual, control and really encapsulate access to different systems.
Mhm.
In the past, we really saw a lot of security based on the idea of the perimeter, that there's a gateway or like a firewall, or you think of like airport security. You go through the security check, and once you're done, you're fine. And identity management is more in line with zero trust architecture, where you are allowing people to have access to the things that they need by I confirming who they are and what that person is supposed to have access to. So
Right.
you can think about like, the airport security is once you get through security, you could do whatever you want pretty much because you're through security. You can't bring the water in, but you can go buy a jug of water afterwards because it's through security.
Mhm.
Whereas a zero trust identity model would more say that, okay, you've got your passport that says you can carry water, so we're going to check every time you have water that your passport says it is, and that's enough. And that's
Right.
not a super great analogy, I guess, but kind of
It's close.
there.
Well,
It's close
I,
enough.
I think a good one. Just thinking out loud. That maybe like I go through security once, but then I want to go to the food court
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
buy something. They want to check to make sure before I make that purchase at the food court that I'm authorized to make food
Mhm.
court purchases, right?
Yeah.
And and say, oh, okay, this person passed through the security here, and we know they're here, and we know that they're allowed, and
Mhm.
it's contextual, right?
Mhm.
You wouldn't say, oh, they're allowed to come through here, and then go into like a flight operations room because they don't have the right
Exactly.
identity. So they have,
Yeah.
and they have access to the food court, not the flight operations.
Yep.
So I think that's a great way to,
That works. Yeah, I like that one. And then the identity management piece of it is how you manage that identity. So
Right.
if we're talking about, physical or passport, what you put in place to secure your passport, things like, anti-counterfeiting measures on it, but also, keeping it in your pocket instead of throwing it around, or whatever those things are. And
Right.
in cybersecurity sense, we're not talking about passport, but we do look at things like multi-factor authentication. We look at things like single sign-on,
Right.
using a single we call it single source of truth, where there's one identity system that's controlled, and everything else refers back to that. And password management, all those things are pieces of identity management.
Right. Very, and it all kind of ties into a framework, I assume, right? There's a reason why you're doing all this. Like,
Yeah.
why do all this stuff if it doesn't tie back to something that's more holistic, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and George, jumping off of that, I think the framework that we like to operate from at Valiant, and also what we suggest people operate from on a larger scale, it's called, I love this, it's called the CIA Triad. It actually helps guide me when I give advice, but the CIA Triad, if you guys were wondering what that is, I know we've talked about it before. It's a widely applicable security model, and it covers 3 principles that should be guaranteed in any kind of secure system. So C, confidentiality, I, integrity, and A, availability. And each of these should be sort of top of mind for you. And the triad makes it easier to work with because it helps you establish priorities among the 3 areas, and especially where they overlap.
Right.
And are in opposition to each other. It just helps you guide through what falls under what category and kind of how to resolve for that, if that makes sense.
Well, it puts it in context, right? Like each piece,
Yeah.
anything you're doing at any given time will fall into one of those 3 kind of areas of kind of thought or frame. And so, are we managing the identity here? How does that impact how confidential the data is? Will it be available because I know the right people have access to it? And integrity is, do I know the right person has access to it and hasn't modified it in any way, shape, or form? That's a big piece of it. Is that you look at a document, how do you know it's actually the person that did it? Is this we always laughed the other day. We're talking about signatures. It's like, what does a signature mean today anymore? How do you know? Whereas a digital timestamp tied to someone's real like a verified identity might be much more useful, much more applicable to going forward, especially as you kind of flow between different systems. And I know myself. How many passwords do you guys have? How many systems do you have access to at any given day, right? So I think the triad is a great place to kind of put anything you're working on at any given time into context of like, okay, why are we doing this one thing? Like, hey, how does identity management fall into? And it falls into all 3 of these things,
Right.
and it's a good way for explaining them, and it's a good way for us to kind of put it for our clients and for ourselves to know where it kind of lives at any given time. So it's good stuff.
I think to dive a little deeper into the 3 pieces with the first, confidentiality, like you're saying, is making sure that the data is only accessed by the people who are supposed to have access to it, and some of that is around having role-based access controls. So you can say, like, okay, if you're in the HR department, you can access the HR files, but you don't access the finance files. Only the finance team does that, and things like that. And can also include like encryption to make sure that that stuff is encrypted.
Correct.
Integrity, when we talk about integrity, again, like you were saying, how do you know that the file that you're opening is the data that's supposed to be there, hasn't been modified? And this usually is refers to doing logging and previous versions and something along those lines. And that can be, to protect against malicious, even think about like CryptoLocker. How do you know that this file wasn't encrypted? Or how do you know that this file, somebody didn't change the data? Or even just simple things like somebody accidentally put the date in the European format instead of the US format, and, just to know where those things are. And the last one, availability, is making sure that the pieces that you put in place for confidentiality and integrity don't make the data so locked down that you can't access it to do things with. You know,
Right.
I can make a super secure file storage system by printing it out, putting it in a safe, putting that safe in a locked room, putting that locked room somewhere else, and allowing nobody to get to it. But that's useless. So you
Right.
have to make sure that the
It,
data is available, and that can go in for things like not just from the day to day, but all, or not just the extreme cases, but the day to day, like making sure that there's redundant power, so that if there's a power outage, you can get to data. Making sure you have redundant internet, so if there's an
Mhm.
internet outage, you can get to your tools
right.
and things like
It,
that.
it's really like looking at any given system or access to that data as a business critical function, and
Hmm.
finding all like single points of failure, areas that you can improve upon, planning for when it fails, and doing that as like a regular exercise. Just
Yeah.
really kind of just regular, always and always again and again, saying okay, and iteratively improving that
Yeah,
Yeah.
access. And
and
identity management is a really core piece of that.
absolutely.
Access systems. So
Yeah, all of those three pillars, three legs of the triad. Some of them can work in conjunction with each other, and some of them are diametrically opposed to each other. The way that
right,
they're set up, something can be, to make something really confidential, it may not be available. To make it available, you may be impacting the integrity. So
Yeah.
there's always a good practice when you are thinking about what your processes or what you're implementing, to ask yourself questions about what you're doing. Like, will this approach make systems more secure, or will it help ensure the integrity of data, or will it make sure that there's going to be extended uptime,
right,
or is it going to reduce one of those things, and finding the balance between
right.
what's required for your organization.
And
Mhm.
once again, it's always a business decision,
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
technical.
Yeah.
That's the hard part for a lot of folks, I think. Say you always have to look at it from the how does it impact the organization,
Mhm.
not
Hmm.
just like IT person.
Mhm.
I don't know that's the way to
Mhm.
put it, but it's that. All right, let's get back to identity management. I think identity management day is such an important topic. We want to get people really kind of aware of this. Our digital identities are our identities. I think in many ways, especially the past. Just the need for mobility and kind of
Yeah.
work from home and all the stuff that's happening in the world. So I think really knowing it. So identity management is a really critical thing. We're really proud to support it. Check it out. It's April. It's next Tuesday, April 13th. They have a dedicated site to it. There's a lot of great information on it. So before we just kind of some basic tips here, and we'll kind of go through it. So just to reiterate it, think before you click. I think this is the first
Big
and
one.
most important thing. I mean, I don't know about you guys. We see a lot of stuff. We get a lot of customers asking us about. We get it personally. You get it in my personal life. You get it in here. This stop for a second. Don't just click on anything. Like I got one the other day. It was like a voicemail from Office 365. Now I don't get voicemail Office 365. It doesn't work that way,
Mhm.
right? Like I know my system,
Yeah.
so I had to stop for a second. So really know who you're clicking on.
Mhm.
That's a really great. That's a great. So if it looks suspicious, it almost definitely is.
Yeah.
And the advice is, contact directly somebody, but not through the same system. Call them up, send them a text message on a known number. If they're net new people, find another alternative way to. But you just want to be careful. So,
Hmm.
all right, Justin, what's the next one?
Uh, this one is share with care, which is rhyming and important. um,
I like iteration.
it's you
Thank
make sure the information that you are putting out there into the world are not things that you would use for, let's say, a security question. A great example of this, prior to our live stream, while we were all just kind of chatting, I was talking about my first car. So I'm
Yep.
never going to use what was the make and model of your first car
you.
as my security question, because then I could never talk about it
Yep.
because
It's true.
you guys all know the answer to that
I
question.
do. I do.
So,
Now that I own you. No, I'm
yeah,
just kidding.
things
Yeah.
like, no, it's things like what high school you go to is,
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
not really that secure if you post in your high school Facebook group and
Yeah.
have that available. I mean, like, you
Yep.
really need to be careful about what information you're putting out there. Not necessarily to hide all of it, but just to be aware of what it is and don't use that as something that should be
Yes,
secure.
exactly. There shouldn't, yeah, just be really careful with the thought of like the security questions, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
All
it's
right.
not just security questions. That stuff can be used just to be more convincing for
Right.
phishing. You know, if your
Correct.
Yeah.
address is somewhere Googleable and someone can say, hey, you owe back taxes on this address, it makes it seem
Right.
more legitimate because they got the address correct.
Mhm.
Correct. That's
And I
correct.
think even Marianne, when I started, you shared something on Facebook that was like those questionnaires they have on like
Yes.
answer all these things about your past, like get to know
Mhm.
each other. And so many
Yeah.
people share those things. And you posted like a meme that was like, stop giving people your personal information.
Yes.
And I remember, I mean, I knew that, but I was also like, this needs to be on all my
Yes.
maybe my mother should
What's
know.
your mother's maiden name? Oh, so
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. All right. So, Marion, what's the next one?
Oh,
This
the
is one
next
you
one.
spent a lot of time on.
Lock down your login. Yeah, I mean, weak passwords, passwords used for multiple services. When one thing gets compromised, everything gets compromised if you're using the same password.
Yeah.
So this is directly from Identity Management Day, but you should create long passphrases for accounts and always use multi-factor authentication wherever possible. And you'd be
Right.
surprised that a lot of places require it, but a lot of accounts that you have, it is available, and you just need to go to your security settings and turn it on. Almost all your social media accounts probably have it, so you don't have to have that accident where someone logs in, starts emailing all your friends, the Facebook friends link. So yeah,
Yeah.
multi-factor authentication is a huge one because as we're talking identity management, they need that part of your identity, not just your password to get
Mhm.
in.
Correct. Exactly. All right, Megan, what's next?
Get savvy about Wi-Fi hotspots, and this has been relevant to me in the past.
Mhm.
It's just good to remember, don't have blind trust in this stuff. Public wireless isn't secure, and attackers do take advantage of this to get information or get you to download malware on unprotected devices. And again, this is just something I think, again, there's a blind trust sometimes with the internet. There's people like don't understand. Uh, just get extra savvy about this stuff, educate
Right.
yourself, and avoid
Mhm.
using wireless.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just public wireless as well. It's any wireless where you don't have to enter a password in
Yeah.
the settings.
Yeah.
Not going to a web page and logging in. Any web and where you don't enter a password, that connection isn't encrypted, and anybody else on that wireless network potentially can snoop your
It's
traffic. So,
it's a legit like kind of party line. Like
Mhm.
it's just broadcast out there. So
Yeah.
it's an inherent way that wireless networks work. Well, I always recommend people when they ask me, use your phone as a portable hotspot. It's the best way to protect yourself.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
you know that network, you control it. It's always kind of dedicated to you. I highly recommend doing that.
Mhm.
Okay, excellent. Justin, you're back to you. What's next?
Next one is keep a clean machine.
Mhm.
Which, if you look at my desk, you'd think it's a mess, but my computer desktop is always clean. It's
That's true.
I but in seriousness, it is one of the most important things you can do is keeping your machine up to date, making sure that you don't leave software on your machine that you don't use regularly and therefore are not updating regularly, and run the OS patches, Windows and Mac OS patches. Uh, the uh, biggest way that machines get breached is not necessarily downloading malware that does all this stuff. It's downloading malware that takes advantage of a security hole in software that's already there. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's by running those updates, you make sure that you're closing that vulnerability, and blocking those things from running,
Correct.
especially since once that security patches out and it becomes a known a
Mhm.
known vulnerability, it becomes a lot easier for somebody to write
Yeah.
a bit of code to take advantage of that vulnerability.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
running
Because
yeah.
they
updates,
haven't updated.
yeah,
Well,
They just
yeah.
got instructions.
yeah,
Well,
exactly,
it's like it's possible, right? The first
yeah.
open heart surgery, like the first person did it. Um, Boom! It's like yeah, we can do it again, right? It's repeatable, and I think and that one is such a simple. It's hard. It's simple but hard, right? To keep your stuff up to date, but it's really such a. If you look at the top vulnerabilities, some of them are very old, actually. There's some of them are years old.
Mhm.
So, all right, Marion, the last one, and then I know you have other stuff going on, so so exciting.
More security stuff. So great. Yeah. So the next one is own your online presence. So it is a little bit what we were talking about before. Ensure your personal data isn't unknowingly accessible by others. Look at privacy settings when you're creating accounts and review them because they can change, and pay attention to what information you are getting out there or putting out there. Obviously we put out a certain amount of information because we want to be a part of the social online, all that stuff. But it's important to know, like, if you put an app on your phone, what is it actually accessing? What information
Correct.
is being sent? So it's a good idea to, when you press the approve, at least have an idea of what it's accessing, and then check in on that, review your accounts every 6 months. I actually really like, and this is, closely a little bit related, but Gmail has a really great feature where they will be like, oh, do you know that you're attached to this app? Do you know that you're attached to that app? So if you go to your security settings in your Google, it's really interesting. So you can see what has access through your Gmail account and what they have access to. Maybe they just have access to what your email is. Maybe they can see some of your preferences. So
And not to bring it back full circle, but that's the think before you click situation.
yeah.
Because when you click on those accesses or privacy, uh, you know, I don't think at times, the Uber app needs to have access to my contacts.
Yeah.
Why?
Mhm.
Why does it need to see my contacts? So you got to ask
Mhm.
that question. Why does the app need that? Now, maybe it wants to see for my addresses. I
Yeah.
don't know, but I think that's kind of that thoughtfulness that
Mhm.
it can
Well,
be
and a
that
lot
can be
of
hard.
things nowadays will say only have access while the app is open, which is really
Mhm.
important.
That's
So,
new,
like, Uber obviously needs access to your location, because
right?
it's going to pick you up at that location. Maybe you could type it in, but in general, it's more convenient.
Right.
Convenience for security. But you can make most applications, you can say, but you don't need access when I'm not opening the app,
Mhm.
you know?
This is
Exactly.
also goes back to CIA triad. I feel yeah. Sorry, I
Yeah.
got it.
No, it
No,
does.
you're right. Availability, because I want
Mhm.
it to have access to my location.
Convenience. Yeah.
But you do still want it to be confidential when I don't want it to. So,
Correct.
Mhm.
And there's some really great. I mean, this is a really hot button topic. We'll probably talk about it in the future. But we're out of time. This is a great
Yeah.
stream. We could talk for hours on it. But we just want to really check out Identity Management, the IDS Alliance website. It's really great content on there that'll really put this in context, probably even more in depth than we're doing here. We're just kind of skimming the surface of it. As I
Mhm.
said, this is a really important topic, and it's just one of those ones that we could do better all the time talking about with each other.
Yeah.
With that being said, talking about talking to each other, next week we have an awesome stream. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be maximize remote team collaboration, because, man, it's remote. Remote world's here. It's not going anywhere. Man, people are going to be able to work. The game's changed,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
we got to maximize it and make it work for businesses, we work for staff, we got to make it work for our partners and our vendors, everyone. So we're going to talk some best practices, things that we can do. We're going to put together, be on the lookout. In a couple weeks, we're going to have a workplace collaboration guide. So it's going to be really great stuff. And if you like the content, please like it, please share it. We love doing these. We are really excited to share what we do. We're all very passionate. And if you have a chance, please check out our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. And if you are curious about Valiant and our company, check out our website, thevaliantway.com. We try to have a lot of information on there. And if you want to drop us a line, check us out. So that'll be it. So Marianne, Justin, Megan, thanks so much for today. Matt, thanks a lot for producing as always. It was awesome. And see you guys next Thursday. All
Yeah.
right,
Take
bye now.
care,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you.